the next part of our trim series we want to look at will be adding in shutters. I believe this particular house only has shutters on these two windows, but that's fine because we can show you what's going on. Actually looking around, looks like this side window has one, as well as we're doing, looks like a faux shutter detail here, so that works out well to kind of show you some different options of how to do things. This is the different version. So, yep, so it looks like we have some different shutters, or shutters in different areas. So we can take a quick look at that and build some shutters. So even though it looks like this is a fairly custom shutter and we have a lot of detailing of really what it would look like, just to note that again in my blocks folder on the server we've talked about before, we do have this is blocks, elevations, shutters. So these are some various shutters that we have, and whenever I need to create a new one, I'll create it in here first and then bring it into my model, so that I always have you know, these various shutters pre-built that we can use. So let's go ahead and look at our CAD file and see if we can build a shutter in here. So this one, it looks like we're just going to do this simple recess, and it has this radius hole drilled in it. It looks like we are going to just do a 4-inch trim around a full height window by half width height. So we will look at our SketchUp model, and actually let's find where we want to start our first one. So it looks like we'll do one that's right here, so we can do that real quick. So just to take some quick measurements, it looks like our shutter will be approximately 18 inches by 5'5". So let's build that in here. So we will draw a rectangle of 18 by 5'5". Rotate it 90 degrees. We'll double click it, make it a group, make it a component, and you can see that the way I will build my shutter groups is each pair of shutter I will do as simply a group versus a component, but coming in the group, each shutter will be a component instead of grouped. The reason being is sometimes you have shutters that are, so you're using the same shutter setup even though the window might differ in width, so you can change the width without changing multiple versions of it. Again, for example, if I were to copy this down, I needed this one to be a little wider. You can see I can do that without changing the shutter. So that's how I'd like to try and group my shutters together. So with that in mind, we'll just turn this one's into a component already, and we want to pull this out 2 inches. We'll drop this down 4, and we'll push this one back 1, and we know that we have a drilled hole here in the center. We will look at this detail once again, check the radius. It's 3/4 inch, so 1.5 inch diameter. I drew this line, this gives me my center point, but I also turned it into a group, and I'll show you why. If I were to have left it as a line and then try and draw my circle at 3/4 inch, this line is going to split my circle, which I don't want. So the way around that is I just make this into a group. Let's turn it in. There we go. Now it's a group. And you can see that this is a group. And now when I draw my circle at 3/4 inch diameter, I can pull this all the way through, which is 1 inch. And this really doesn't affect it, but allows it to be a functional guideline. So there we have it. There's our shutter. You don't have to, and really depending on the project, you may or may not want to, but I always like putting these hardware details on, just gives a little bit of extra. Sometimes you don't want them because for this particular project, this is more of a builder project, and these aren't real shutters, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're just more of a poly resin, stucco finished detail that looks like shutters. But we'll go ahead and model it to make it look more like a shutter. So we'll just grab it here by the midpoint. And even though we're not sitting quite on the right size of what we want, we can just quickly adjust it. As well as the other important part is we copied it down within this group, so we're technically working in this component. But now that I have it in place, I'm just going to Control X to cut it, and I come back into my component here and Control Shift V for pasting in place, and there you have it, as the details right where we want them. So now we have that shutter built. We can actually copy this one over really whatever distance, doesn't really matter, and we're going to use our scale by -1 command, which will mirror it, and maybe we'll just slide these in place just to match the one above. Again, doesn't really matter because we'll adjust it on the model itself. And now we'll just group these together just so we have a pair of shutters grouped, just easier to work that way. So I'll just Control C to copy it, and we'll come into our model, and I'm going to Control V, and we will paste it right there. Oops. And just plop it down right there, right where we want it to be. Like I said, now we just need to come in here and adjust the width of where we want it to be and slide it right over here. So there you have it. And you see that really, even though I built the window at the proper full height, I'm running into my trim because we talked about in trims, I actually pull this down 1/2 inch for material reasons. And so just like so many other things we've talked about, everything has pros and cons. So really for this, the shutter, I'm just going to pull it down 1/2 inch just to make things look nice and clean. So there's our shutter for that window, and we'll check our CAD file for wherever else we want to put some. So it looks like we're going to have some there, but maybe what I'll show you next will be this one here. Let's show you how it looks, how to build this faux shutter detail. So we're 2'10.5" off the corner, so we know where we're going, and we want a 5'3" shutter. So we will just copy this over, say there. We're going to rotate it 90 degrees, and we're actually going to pull this up just to match right there, make sure we're in the right place, and we'll slide this over 2'10.5". So we know that this really is our center line, so maybe we'll mark that just to hold it. And what we're also going to do is, there was a head trim, so it's 3 foot and plus the additional, I think all of these I only did 2 inches, so we'd go back and either correct these or maybe we'll keep them 2 inches for now, just to keep our consistency. It'd be easy enough to fix everything, but we'll just keep them at 2 inches for now. So the important part really is we need 3 feet plus 4 inches. So we'll add an additional 3.5, 5.5, 7.5 inches, and that should give us our 3'4". And we'll slide this guy back right over here and slide there. There we go. And so that's our head trim, that's going to be for our faux shutter detail. We'll copy this down. Again, our sill was only 4 inches, so we'll pull that up 2 inches. And really, this could simply be as easy as we will make these two unique, because I'm going to edit these slightly different than what these are, so we're going to make these components unique. And according to our model, these pieces don't exist, so in reality this really could just be just as simple as doing this, and that matches what our model is telling us, and we could call it a day. The point of doing this series to show you some more features as to what's going on. The fun thing to do is we will put, say, this, we're going to make a copy of it. So if this was a functional shutter, this is kind of where it would be sitting. So maybe the hinges won't be seen because it would be closed, and this wouldn't be seen. And so we're going to actually cut this out and paste, and then we will copy this back here. And so this shows really where the shutter dog would be. Maybe we're going to vary from the plan just a little bit because I want to put these shutter dogs in. So maybe we'll slide this over, say 6 inches, and now I'm going to cut this again and paste it in my component. So now that we have a mirror of it, and simply slide this guy back, and I slide my trim over 6 inches, and there you have it. There's a faux shutter detail, and showing how the shutter dogs would sit, because that's what would hold the shutter open, and just adds a nice little touch in my opinion. So that's what I do with the faux shutter detail. And here's a base shutter, and we'll take a quick look at the CAD file again, and it looks like we just have a couple more shutters to add in. So maybe I'll do those real quick and show you what the final version looks like. So all the shutters are now on. I have all of them on the side, the faux one over here, as well as the ones over here. And I started putting this one on, but I did want to finalize this tutorial with showing one other important piece as to how I build shutters and why. So let's put this one back in place where it needs to go. Actually looks like we need to slide this whole group up just a bit. And really the importance is come in here. I want to make these guys unique because I'm going to make them smaller. And really what I want to get at is the editing of the shutter to change sizes for whatever shutter you're dealing with. So let's see here, this one is 13 inches and we're currently 18, so we need to bring this in 5, as well as we need to drop it, what was that, 21.5 inches. So bringing this in 5 inches, you'll see that most things I model in groups, but you'll see that the hardware is in groups or components, but my shutter is actually at my surface level. And the reason why is it really makes it easy to edit everything together. Because if this was a group, let's turn into a group, I would have to come in here and edit this. And I know I'm dropping 21.5 inches, which is 10 3/4. So I would drop this 10 3/4 down, and then come and drop this 10 3/4 down. But with my shutter just simply being on a surface level, I can grab all this, including this middle piece, drop 10 3/4, and then grab all of my top shutter as well as this piece and drop 21.5. And so it makes it very easy to edit the shutter. Similarly, we need to move this over, we said 5 inches total, so 2.5 for there. And then I can grab all of my side pieces as well as the hardware and move that over 5 inches. And there you go. Maybe this particular shutter only needs 2 hinges because it's so small. So it just shows why I modeled the way I did and how easy it is to make adjustments to the shutter with by keeping it not a group on the inside. So there we have it. There's the addition of shutters. Lastly, we're going to build vents, and that should end pretty much all the trims on this particular house.